What if the woman lying next to you at night, the one who calls you babe and seems so sweet, is actually one of the most selfish people you'll ever meet? And the worst part? You might be falling deeper in love with her every single day. Listen carefully. I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to tell you the truth they don't want you to know. There's a certain kind of woman who has perfected the art of seeming like the perfect partner. She's warm in public, posts loving photos, remembers your mother's birthday, and tells you she's not like other girls. But behind closed doors, every single interaction slowly bends toward one center of gravity: her feelings, her needs, her moods, her insecurities, her agenda. Most people never see it until the damage is done. They mistake her charm for character, they confuse her attention for love, and by the time they realize they've been feeding someone who only knows how to take, they're emotionally bankrupt. This isn't about hating women. This is about protecting your peace, your future, and your ability to love someone who can actually love you back. Because selfish people don't just waste your time. They quietly rewrite your reality until you no longer trust your own judgment. Let me show you what almost nobody is willing to say out loud. The first sign she's actually selfish is the one-way street. You think you're in a relationship, but you're actually in an audience. When she talks, it's a full production. Her day, her drama, her traumas, her dreams, her opinions about everything. She speaks with passion and intensity, but the moment you start talking about your own life, your stresses, your victories, or your pain, you can feel the energy shift. The lights dim, her eyes glaze. She starts looking at her phone, changes the subject back to herself within 90 seconds, or gives you one of those shallow, "aw, that sucks, babe" responses that feel like emotional crumbs. This isn't shyness. This isn't a bad day. This is a personality structure. Deep down, she experiences your needs as competition. Your success threatens her. Your pain annoys her because it requires her to step outside of her own experience. In psychology, we call this vulnerability intolerance. She can only tolerate conversations that revolve around her emotional world. Anything else feels like an attack on her centrality. I've spoken to hundreds of men and women who lived this exact nightmare. One guy told me he got a promotion he'd worked 6 years for. When he told her, she said, "That's nice," then immediately launched into a 20-minute story about how her boss didn't appreciate her. Another woman watched her boyfriend cry in her arms after his father died, only for his girlfriend to say, "I know how you feel, my grandma died 2 years ago," and then steer the conversation to her own grief. They make everything about them, not because they're evil, but because their sense of self is so fragile that they literally cannot share the stage, not even for 5 minutes. And here's what makes it so dangerous. They're often incredibly articulate. They use therapy language. They say things like, "I just feel really unsafe when I'm not heard." They weaponize emotional intelligence language against you. You end up feeling like you're the selfish one for wanting basic reciprocity. Pay attention to this pattern early. The first 3 months will tell you everything. If conversations consistently die when the spotlight isn't on her, you are not in a relationship. You are in an emotional support system for her ego. The scary part? Many of these women don't even realize they're doing it. They've been rewarded their entire lives for being passionate and expressive. Nobody ever told them that real love requires making space for another soul, not just performing your own. So ask yourself this right now. When was the last time she asked you a deep question about your inner world and actually listened to the answer without interrupting or pivoting back to herself? When was the last time she checked on you emotionally when she wasn't the one hurting? If you're struggling to remember the unease you feel in your stomach right now, that's your nervous system telling you the truth your heart doesn't want to accept. This is just the beginning. Because the women who master the one-way street usually have 4 more sophisticated strategies to keep you hooked while slowly draining you. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. The mask is convincing. The voice is soft. The hugs feel warm. But real love looks like 2 people choosing each other in both the spotlight and the shadows. If she only knows how to stand in the spotlight, you're not her partner. You're her mirror. And the longer you stay, the more of yourself you will lose trying to make her reflection happy. You're her mirror. And the longer you stay, the more of yourself you will lose trying to make her reflection happy. But the mask gets even more sophisticated. The second sign she's actually selfish is that her warmth is conditional. It comes with an invisible price tag. At the beginning, she seems like the most loving woman you've ever met. She sends good morning texts, cooks for you, posts pictures of the two of you like you're the greatest love story ever told. But slowly, you begin to notice a disturbing pattern. Her affection rises and falls based on what you're doing for her. When you're giving her attention, gifts, emotional support, or status, she's sweet, playful, and sexually open. The moment you slow down, set a boundary, or focus on your own life, the warmth disappears instantly. She becomes cold, distant, or suddenly depressed. She doesn't tell you she's punishing you. She just withdraws so skillfully that you start chasing the version of her you first met. This is one of the most painful realizations a person can have, that the love you thought was real was actually a reward system. I need you to hear this clearly. Healthy women can get disappointed or frustrated, but they don't turn their entire personality off because you said no to something. Selfish women do. Their kindness is a transaction, and you only get paid when you're useful. You'll see it in small things. She's incredibly thoughtful when she wants you to meet her friends or take her on a trip. But when you're sick or going through something difficult, suddenly she's not in a good headspace to support you. Her empathy has limits, and those limits always seem to protect her comfort. This creates a psychological phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement. Your brain becomes addicted to the warm version of her because it's unpredictable. One day, she's your dream girl. The next day, she's a stranger. And like any addiction, you start modifying your behavior to keep the good times coming. You stop expressing your real needs. You walk on eggshells. You abandon your own standards just to keep her in a good mood. That's not love. That's emotional hostage-taking. Now, the third sign runs even deeper, and this is where a lot of good people lose years of their lives. She uses the victim strategy as her primary weapon. She has an almost supernatural ability to position herself as the victim in every situation, especially when she's done something wrong. If you call her out on her behavior, she doesn't defend herself like a mature adult. Instead, she collapses into pain. She brings up her childhood trauma, her exes who hurt her, her anxiety, her depression, anything that makes you feel like a monster for having a legitimate complaint. Suddenly, you're comforting her for the pain you caused by asking her to be accountable. This is incredibly effective because decent people have empathy. When she cries and says, "I'm just too much, I don't blame you for wanting to leave," something in you breaks. You end up apologizing to her for her selfishness. You start thinking maybe you are expecting too much, maybe you're the problem. Let me tell you something that might shake you. Some of the most selfish people on earth have mastered the art of looking broken. Their fragility is their greatest manipulation tool. They've learned that most people will tolerate almost any behavior if you wrap it in enough vulnerability and tears. I've heard the same stories from people in their 20s all the way to their 60s. Men and women who stayed in relationships for years because every time they tried to leave, she would fall apart. She would threaten to harm herself or say, "See, everyone always leaves me," or remind you of that one time she was really good to you as if that erased months of emotional neglect. And because you're a good person, you stay. You tell yourself you're being patient. You tell yourself real love means staying through someone's darkness. But here's the truth they don't teach you. Real love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Her pain is real, but she uses it as currency. Every tear becomes an excuse not to grow. Every trauma becomes a shield against accountability. And you become the therapist, the parent, the savior, and eventually the villain when you finally burn out. The combination of these three signs creates a slow, emotional death. First, she takes all the conversational space. Then she makes her love conditional. Then she uses her pain to make you feel guilty for noticing any of it. You start doubting your own sanity. You start thinking maybe you're too demanding. Maybe you're not supportive enough. Maybe you're the selfish one. But deep down, that unease in your body has never gone away, has it? That quiet voice that says, "This doesn't feel right." That voice isn't anxiety, it's wisdom. It's the part of you that still remembers what real love is supposed to feel like. The women who show these patterns aren't necessarily evil. Many of them developed these strategies because they worked. They learned early that being emotionally strategic got them what they wanted. But that doesn't make it your responsibility to heal them at the cost of your own soul. If you're watching this right now and feeling a sickening recognition in your chest, I want you to know something important. It's not your fault for missing the signs. These women are incredibly skilled at hiding in plain sight. They seem nice. That's the whole trap. But now you're waking up. And once you see these patterns clearly, you can never go back to sleep. The next two signs are even more destructive because they attack the very foundation of who you are. The next two signs are even more destructive because they attack the very foundation of who you are. The fourth sign is one that quietly destroys your confidence and sense of self over time. She cannot truly celebrate you. In fact, your light seems to dim hers. At first, it's subtle. You get a major win at work, something you've poured months into, and instead of genuine pride, you get a half-hearted, "that's great," followed immediately by something about her own day. You achieve a personal goal, maybe you've been hitting the gym hard and transformed your body, and rather than feeling supported, you notice little comments designed to take you down a notch. "Don't get too cocky," or "I liked you better before, you've changed." She doesn't want you weak, but she doesn't want you powerful either. She wants you in that perfect middle space where you're strong enough to serve her needs, but never so strong that you outgrow her. This is one of the darkest traits of a selfish person. Your success becomes a threat to her importance. If you become too happy, too successful, too respected, she loses the power position she's grown comfortable in. So she begins to undermine you, almost always in private where it can't be proven. She criticizes your friends. She makes you feel guilty for spending time on your passions. She frames your ambition as selfishness. Many people in these relationships describe the same strange feeling. They feel lonelier with her than they do when they're actually alone. Because being with someone who cannot rejoice in your joy is a special kind of emotional starvation. I want you to think about this deeply. Real love expands with your growth. It doesn't feel threatened by it. When someone truly loves you, your win is their win. But a selfish woman sees your win as a potential loss of control. So she begins to chip away at your confidence, your dreams, and eventually your identity. She might do it with sarcasm disguised as jokes. She might do it by comparing you to other people. She might do it by creating constant drama so you're always focused on her problems instead of building your own life. The result is the same. You start shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You stop sharing your good news. You stop pursuing big goals because the emotional cost at home is too high. This is how good men and women slowly disappear inside relationships. Not with loud fights, but with 1,000 tiny deaths of the self. The psychology here is brutal. She likely has what psychologists call a fragile ego. She needs to be the main character in every story, including yours. When you start becoming the main character in your own life, it creates an internal crisis for her. Instead of doing the hard work of building her own self-worth, she chooses to pull you back down to her level. And because she still seems nice to everyone else, you start questioning your own perception. Everyone tells you how lucky you are. Her social media looks perfect. Her friends think she's an angel. So you wonder if you're the crazy one for feeling crushed by someone who appears so caring. Let me speak directly to your spirit right now. If you've been dimming your light to make her comfortable, if you've been minimizing your accomplishments so she doesn't feel insecure, if you've been apologizing for simply wanting more in life, you are not crazy. You are not ungrateful. You are not too much. You are starving for a love that sees you, truly sees you, and says, "I'm proud of you," without any hidden resentment. The combination of all these signs creates something truly devastating. The one-way conversations, the conditional affection, the victim manipulation, the inability to celebrate your success. Together, they create a psychological prison where you're constantly trying to earn basic respect and love that should be freely given. Your nervous system stays in fight or flight. You become hyper-aware of her moods. You lose touch with your own needs. Many people in these relationships develop anxiety, depression, or what some experts call relational trauma. The worst part is that because there are no visible scars, nobody believes how much pain you're actually in. You start to feel like maybe this is the best you can get. Maybe all relationships are like this. Maybe you're the problem. But that's the final trap. The selfish person's greatest weapon is making you believe that their dysfunction is normal and your healthy needs are the real problem. If you're sitting there with a heavy chest right now, if someone specific keeps appearing in your mind as I speak, trust that feeling. Your body has been keeping the score even when your mind tried to rationalize it all away. These patterns don't usually get better with time. They get more sophisticated. She learns exactly how much pain she can cause without losing you. She learns exactly how to pull you back in when you start pulling away. The fifth and final sign is the one that usually breaks people completely. It's the moment when the mask doesn't just slip, it shatters. And it almost always happens during your time of greatest need. The fifth and final sign is the one that usually breaks people completely. It's the moment when the mask doesn't just slip, it shatters. And it almost always happens during your time of greatest need. When life hits you hard, when you lose your job, when a parent gets sick, when you're struggling with depression, when you're simply having a breakdown and need to be held, that's when her true nature reveals itself. Instead of stepping up, she either disappears emotionally, becomes irritated that your pain is inconveniencing her, or finds a way to make your crisis about her. "This is really triggering my abandonment wounds," she says while you're crying. Or she goes silent for days, or she competes with your suffering. You think that's bad? Let me tell you what I went through last year. This is the moment the illusion dies. Because love, real love, shows up in the darkness. Selfish people only signed up for the highlight reel. When the lights go out and the cameras stop rolling, they reveal that they were never partners. They were guests in your life who enjoyed the warmth but never wanted the responsibility. I've sat with people who told me the same devastating sentence. The day I needed her most, she made me feel like a burden. That sentence breaks something deep inside a person. It doesn't just end the relationship. It can shatter your ability to trust for years. If you've experienced all 5 signs, the one-way conversations, the conditional love, the victim manipulation, the inability to celebrate you, and the abandonment in your darkest moments, you are not in a relationship with a difficult woman. You are in a relationship with a deeply selfish person who has learned to hide behind a nice smile and soft voice. Now hear me, because this is the part that matters most. You did not come to this earth to be someone's emotional support animal. You did not come here to shrink yourself so someone else can feel big. Your heart was not built to live in constant negotiation for basic respect and care. The truth they don't want you to know is this. The moment you accept that you deserve reciprocity, your entire life begins to change. But first, you have to feel the weight of what you've tolerated. You have to let it break your heart. Not so you become bitter, but so you finally become free. If you're in this situation right now, I'm not going to tell you it's easy to leave. These relationships are addictive. The good moments are incredible. The hope that she'll finally change keeps you trapped, but change rarely comes for people who face no real consequences. Start with boundaries. Real ones. Not threats, not anger. Calm, clear boundaries. And watch how she responds. A healthy person may struggle, but will ultimately respect them. A selfish person will punish you for having them. Work on yourself. Not because you're broken, but because becoming whole makes you dangerous to manipulative people. Build your confidence, your purpose, your support system, your standards. The stronger you become, the less tolerance you'll have for emotional starvation. And to the women watching this, yes, this message is for you too. If you recognized yourself in any of these signs, this is your wake-up call. The world has taught you that being emotionally expressive is enough. It's not. Love requires the courage to care about someone else's inner world as deeply as your own. If you're only capable of taking, you will end up alone with your ego. The choice to change is still yours. Real love exists. It's not perfect, but it's reciprocal. It has hard conversations without collapsing. It celebrates your wins and sits with you in your losses. It makes you feel safe, not constantly on edge. You can have that. But first, you must stop accepting less. The people who heal from these relationships don't just move on. They become wiser, stronger, and deeply intolerant of anything fake. They learn to spot the patterns in the first few dates instead of the 5th year. They learn to trust that quiet voice of unease instead of silencing it. So, I want to ask you something personal, right here, right now. Which of these 5 signs hit you the hardest? Have you lived through this? Are you living through it now? Or maybe you saw yourself on the other side of these behaviors? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Speaking it out loud is the first step toward taking your power back. If this video woke something up in you, if it made you feel less alone, if it gave you the courage to face what you've been avoiding, do 3 things for me. Hit the like button so this message can reach more people who are quietly suffering. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we're going much deeper into male and female psychology in the next videos. And share this video with one friend who needs to hear this truth. Maybe they're stuck and don't even know why. You deserve love that doesn't require you to disappear. You deserve someone who chooses you even when it's hard. And most importantly, you deserve to choose yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Stay awake.